Find Monday Night Talk on Facebook and share your opinions. Go to 959watd.com/Monday Night Talk.
And we are back in studio, and I'm Christine James, not Kevin Tocci, who is the host of Monday Night Talk, but we've taken over this back-to-back political forums, a little bit of a different night tonight. We just had the 5th Plymouth District candidates in here, and now we've got the 12th Plymouth District candidates in here. We've got Kathy LaNatra, the Democrat, and Joe Truschelli, the Republican. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Christine James, your moderator, asking questions along with me, the host of Monday Night Talk. That would be, of course, Kevin Tocci. That's a great smile.
Thanks.
and Charles Mathewson, WATD reporter. Keeping time over there in the corner, the lovely Amy Leonard, WATD's own Vanna White. And she's got red, green, and yellow cards. Green means go, red means stop, yellow means you've got 10 seconds. There you go. Let's begin tonight with the candidates and their statements. And let's start with Republican Joe Truschelli. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you, Christine, Charlie, and Kevin, for continuing to host these valuable political forums on WATD. I'd also like to thank my opponent for stepping forward into the political spotlight to convey her message. I reside in Plymouth with my wife, Lee, and our 3 sons, Joey, Tommy, and Brody. Public service is incredibly important in our household. Both Lee and I have had the privilege to serve our community in elected positions. Lee serves on the Plymouth Public School Committee, while I've served as a town meeting representative. I am a veteran with 18 years of service in our armed forces and recently received my commission in the United States Air Force to serve the Massachusetts National Guard at Joint Force Headquarters, Hanscom Air Force Base. I hold a bachelor's degree in business from Bridgewater State University and a master's in business administration from the University of Massachusetts. In 2011, I left the private sector to pursue my passion for public service and joined the Sheriff's Department as a reintegration advocate, working with incarcerated individuals and our justice-involved veterans to address barriers to accessing substance abuse treatment and mental health treatment. I have worked as a tireless advocate for their success. In addition, I've spent over 5 years as a member of our law enforcement community on behalf of our county. Most recently, I've served the Baker-Polito administration at the Department of Veterans Services, overseeing the agency's legislative priorities. I built relationships on both sides of the aisle, critical in the development of meaningful legislation that has enhanced our veteran benefits and honored our Gold Star families. I believe experience matters, and I've had the pleasure of working on some truly rewarding initiatives, as well as buckling down to address the most challenging issues facing our communities. I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th. It would be my honor to be your next state representative.
Thank you very much. That was the opening statement. Joe Truschelli, Republican candidate in the 12th Plymouth District. Now let's go to Kathy LaNatra. She's the Democrat running for that open seat.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to WATD for hosting this forum, and to Charlie and Kevin and Christine. As Christine said, I'm Kathy LaNatra. I'm currently the Vice Chair of Kingston Board of Selectmen, and before that I was a Recreation Commissioner for 8 years and a member of the Community Preservation Committee. I'm also a founding member of the Affordable Housing Trust in Kingston. I do a lot of work around town, but probably have the most fun volunteering with seniors at the Kingston Council on Aging and Meals on Wheels. As a local government official, small business owner, volunteer, and mother, I know what this district needs from Beacon Hill. On the Board of Selectmen, I have learned how hard it is to get the local aid we need. My experience in small business has heightened my awareness of the challenges to growing our local economy. My husband Mike is a 12-year veteran of the Kingston Police Department, and we've raised 4 kids in Kingston and sent them to public school. From my family, I know how much our first responders sacrifice to keep us safe, and I know how great our schools are and what it takes to make them even better. At the end of the day, I believe that government needs to work for everyone, from students to seniors and everyone in between. I want to be your voice on Beacon Hill to bring common sense, bipartisan solutions to the problems facing our district. That means increasing local aid for education and economic development and making sure our coastal infrastructure is protected from the growing threat of climate change. It means keeping our district safe by supporting our first responders and taking care of our veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country. I believe that we can fix the problems facing our region, move our community forward, and keep the 12th Plymouth District safe and prosperous for generations to come. That's why I'm running. And that's why I ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Kathy LaNatra, the Democrat who's running in the 12th Plymouth District. Let's go to our Kevin Tocci now for questions for the candidates.
What's fun about this particular race is there isn't an incumbent. There are two fresh faces who want an opportunity at this seat for the next 2 years and foreseeable future. So whoever's elected is going to be a freshman legislator in the House, which will present its challenges when it comes to getting resources like local aid. So basically, you know what I'm going to say, what will you do to bring the bacon home to your district? Sorry, Christine. Kathy.
Well, bring the bacon home. As a vice chair of the Kingston Board of Selectmen, I know how challenging it is to get our fair share of local aid. You know, our school is very important, that we all know that budget formula is grossly underestimated by $2 billion a year, to be exact. I will support any legislation to get us our fair share of local aid for infrastructure, for economic growth, for education, lowering the tax base of our local homeowner.
Joe, same question.
So this is a great question, and one thing that I have the advantage of, and while I'll be a freshman legislator, is I've had the opportunity to be up on Beacon Hill, building and fostering relationships on both sides of the aisle. And yes, I will be a freshman legislator, and there is going to be a lot of work to do, and it is increasingly difficult to bring money back to the communities. But being part of that administration, I've been able to develop these relationships where I know that when we're putting packages together and building budgets, that I'll be able to bring that money back into our communities.
My follow-up question, seeing if I can strike while the iron is hot here, did either of you bring a package of bacon?
We did not,
Oh,
but
no.
had I known you were going to ask.
Because one of the candidates last week did bring me a package of bacon, but I didn't ask the question. Like to keep your folks
they
I
must
was
have
guessing.
been
going to,
very
and I didn't, so I
disappointed.
didn't
It
even-
was good.
I bet they were disappointed. It would have been turkey bacon if I brought it.
That's good too.
Bacon's bacon.
Charles Mathewson, question for the candidates.
Okay, seeing where my esteemed colleague here, he didn't object last week to my calling him a colleague, so I'll do it again. Follow up on that with one of my favorite questions. As a freshman legislator, which committee assignments would you prefer? Joe?
Sure. So I've given this a lot of thought, and I've thought about, obviously the natural fit was Veterans and Federal Affairs, but I realized that I'd like to, part of the reason that I got into this is I wanted to broaden the scope and work on some of the bigger issues facing our community. So I would like to get into probably the Education Committee would be one of my focuses, and then on to Public Safety would be another.
District, we just got a comment from Joe Truschelli, the Republican, and now I think, Charles, that you were going to ask Kathy LaNatra a question about tonight.
Same question, Kathy. What committee assignments would you prefer as a freshman legislator?
I would be honored to be on the Committee of Affordable Housing. I am a trustee in Kingston. Also, any senior services.
Thank you.
Okay. Kevin Tocci, go right ahead.
Silver Lake is one of the prime environmental issues in your district. What's your understanding of the situation, especially the City of Brockton's management of this water resource? We'll start with Kathy.
Start with me. So Silver Lake and Montponset Ponds and the Jones River have been abused by the City of Brockton. They are using that water supply, and that water, I'm going to concentrate more on Montponset Pond right now, but that water has not been able to flow. And what has happened is we've had algae blooms with the cyanobacteria, which is a health hazard to the residents around that pond. So it's very important to me. It's a 100-year-old problem. We did have, Tom Coulter's made a lot of progress with that, and there's an ACO, which is Administrative Consent Order, that's been signed by Brockton. But I would like to reintroduce legislature there that Brockton would be required to hook up to MWRA in Stoughton. Right now, the pipes, there's 26 miles of pipe that, it's not really pipe, I should say it's made of wood, that is going to need to be redone. And I think that money should be spent with Brockton hooking up to the MWRA.
Any concerns that there might be some kind of legislative pushback by their delegation
Well,
if
then-
you introduce such legislation?
I mean, there may be, but what's right is what's right. You know, what's right. This is a health hazard for these people. These waters need to heal.
Joe, same questions, starting with your understanding of Brockton's management of Silver Lake.
This is so part of what I understand this problem to be is obviously the algae blooms are a big part of it, and Brockton taking the draw off of the Monpont ponds. In talking to a number of people, I've gotten to get a little bit more of a grasp on some of the issues that have led to this, and the fact that what's happened is we've had to have these ponds raised to a level where it's actually at an artificial level, taking off part of the beach. And then what we're seeing is that these ponds aren't getting the same turnover that they should be getting, where they should be getting 5-6 cycles in a year. They're only getting an abbreviated 2. And what we're doing to mitigate the algae blooms is working in the interim, but it's at the end of the day what it's doing is it's increasing the level of sediment. And I would think that our best option is to then move on to work on legislation that does work with Brockton to make sure that they're A, paying their fair share, but B, also finding an alternative way of sourcing their water.
How about the same question I asked Kathy in regards to any their delegation, a legislative delegation, providing any pushback?
I'm sure that there will be pushback, but this also affects other towns from the region, so that I would also look to some of the other surrounding towns that are impacted by this and work to build consensus on a way that we can actually address this in a forum, so it's not just a one-on-one conversation, but multiple towns that are impacted.
Charles Mathewson.
Kathy LaNatra and I were at a wild Kingston town meeting in our respective roles, in which a former selectman really reversed the what everyone assumed, that the town would ban cannabis sales, and they're now allowed. I want to ask each of you, do you see the legal sale of cannabis in retail centers as a problem or as a solution? Is it regulating the black market, or is it bringing dope into town? Kathy?
Well, that was a wild meeting, and I was shocked by the vote. What we've done in Kingston, we've looked at zoning. And there will only be a percentage that's allowed, which will be 2%. The question is, do I think that it's going to, just repeat that question, Charlie, sorry.
Do you see this as a problem or as a means to regulate and make cannabis safe?
Well, that's yet to be seen. I don't really know if it's going to help or it's not. It's yet to be seen. But all I know is that we really need to look in zoning issues here. This is all about zoning, and it's about public safety. And those are what I'm going to concentrate on in the district.
Joe?
Sure. So in Massachusetts, we've done a great job of running before we walked, and I don't think that we've gone about this in the right way. And I respect the fact that this was a ballot initiative and the people's will is being heard. I do agree that there is some zoning aspects to it and making sure that, but I also look at the other side of it and the public safety and making sure that we're implementing this properly. For instance, we've decriminalized marijuana, so it's a matter of a $25 fine for someone walking out of one of those facilities with smoking marijuana or consuming edibles. We have open container laws that treat alcohol much more harshly. I think if we're going to implement this, that we should be looking at some level of parity to the way that we work with our alcohol sales and consumption.
Okay, next.
Okay, Kevin Tocci, go right ahead.
Joe, you're attempting to be the first Republican to win a seat that's been held by Democrats for, well, from what I could find so far, 2 decades. It might be a lot longer than that. What will it take for you to convince voters that you're the right person for the seat, party aside? But again, you are a Republican. What's it going to take for you to be able to win the seat?
So take the party out of it altogether, and this is about voting on the person. And this is about voting for someone who has the experience, who has the ear of the current administration, and that can bring back results for the 12th Plymouth. quite frankly, this district it leans more moderate Republican, and the former representative had some issues. Had some ideals that tended to be a little bit more moderate Republican. So I think at the end of the day, I think I'm a natural fit for this, and I think I bring a lot to the table and an experience, and I look forward to that opportunity.
Do you think you'd have the ability to be nominated as a Republican and a Democrat on the same ballot? Would you have that ability?
You never know.
Okay.
I don't know that I would try for that, but you never know.
Okay. Kathy, I believe you stated that you intend on maintaining your seat on the Kingston Board of Selectmen. Will you be able to devote your full attention to the full district, knowing that part of your time you'll be focused on another elected position?
What I stated was I would continue as a Board of Selectmen till the next election. So not to incur a special election on the town, which would be $11,000, or to leave an empty seat. So if I'm honored enough to be elected, I would hold the Board of Selectmen position until April, which is really 4 months. So, and I think that's it's been done, and I think my town would expect it from me, and I look forward to doing that.
Okay, just want a little clarification.
Sure,
I wasn't sure if it was just until the next election, or
Till
if you
the
were
next
going
election,
to
so we
maintain
would not have an
that
empty seat. Or
Okay.
The news at the top of the hour from AP is about the negotiations, let's say, in Washington. And some people are predicting that this will be the second coming of the Year of the Woman that happened right after Anita Hill. We have a Republican male and a Democratic female here. I have to ask, do you think, Kathy LaNatra, that this gives you an advantage?
I think the voters of the 12th Plymouth District want someone that's going to listen to them, that has leadership skills. And those are things that I do have. Those are qualities that I embrace. Am I a woman? Yes. Do I feel that's an asset? Possibly. But I know what my district needs and what my district wants, and I'm the person for that job.
Joe, are you at a disadvantage?
So I think that the 12th Plymouth District is filled with people who are looking to elect the right person to this, and they're not going to just vote on one set of, whether it be a certain demographic. I think this is a much bigger topic, and I think in the 12th Plymouth District, what I bring to the table is leadership skills and experience, but also practical experience with working in the legislature on behalf of the administration. So I think that that's what people are going to see when they go into the ballot booth is experience.
Thank you.
Okay. Kevin Tocci.
During this election season, many have pointed to the education funding formula and unfunded mandates as key problems with the state's educational system. Do you agree with this statement, and what needs to be done differently by the state moving forward? Joe.
So I do agree. Having my wife being in school committee, I've had an opportunity to see some of the shortcomings of that lack of state funding. And, I've had the opportunity to have multiple conversations with the school's administration, the superintendent, as well as the rest of the board of the school board. And that is one of my top priorities, is to address that, because I see it as being a much larger issue that impacts more than just the school system, but also the local economy and the local tax rate. And I look forward to helping bring those funds back to the school to make sure that they can operate properly and take some of that scrutiny off of how much of the budget it takes up in the town's annual budget.
If you could be a part of the conversation in regards to developing a comprehensive plan when it comes to the educational formula, what would some of the key elements be that you'd like to suggest?
So I think one of the first things we have to do is we have to address a lot of the unfunded mandates when it comes to special education and transportation. But I also think that one of the things that I'd like to see, and this is something I've talked to a number of business owners as well as different students along the way, is I'd like to see an investment in technical studies, mainly because technical studies, these kids aren't going through the same technical studies that you and I could have gone through in education, and they're coming out with certificates in different different programs and able to go right into the workforce and mitigating the need to go into a community college or a four-year institution and saving them that debt. So I think that investment in making sure that we bolster those programs is a great way of working on economic development and working on our local economy and making sure that our employers are bringing in people who have those baseline qualifications and that they can invest in as leaders and managers of the future.
Same question in regards to the funding formula and unfunded mandates as being key problems with the state's educational system. Do you feel that this statement is true and what needs to be done differently moving forward, Kathy?
No, we're mandated by the state to fund educational programs. Because our budget formula is so antiquated, we are not receiving the funds that we need. You know, we are underestimated, the cost is underestimated by $2 billion a year, and $1 billion of that is for special education. So it does need to be looked at. It's very important to be looked at. We all need our fair share. There was a Foundation Budget Review Commission recommendation in 2015. There was a study done, and there were five solutions that they had, or 5 recommendations, and 2 of those I agree with, and one would be peg employee health care costs to rising costs on the market, and the other one would be to increase special education costs by 0.25%. Those 2 things would make a big difference.
Okay. And the follow-up is if you could be part of a comprehensive plan moving forward to take another look at the funding formula, what would you like to introduce as a part of the conversation as elements to make those said changes?
Well, again, the healthcare. I would like to peg the healthcare to rising costs, increase the special education budget, but add funding into vocational education. Not everyone is meant for college. No one wants to. It's so hard with our debt for our high school. Our college debt is ridiculous to our students. So if we increased our funding to vocational education, we could have students actually enter the work field and making a great living.
Okay. Let's go to Charles Mathewson.
Kids, the commute from our area here to Boston has been rated as one of the worst in the country.
Mm-hmm.
We have a commuter rail terminus station and stations in other towns in the district. And it doesn't run really useful hours. Route 3 has problems with the bridges that can't be widened over 2 rivers. What would you do to improve transportation? Kathy LaNatra.
Well, we've made some great progress. I don't know if you've heard of Harbor Walk down at Plymouth Station, which is a great example of a mixed-use community, and you have the train right there to bring you into Boston. Another thing I would like to look at is that Middleborough Rotary. That Middleborough Rotary, tongue twister there, was only meant for 23,000 cars a day, and we're up to 47,000 cars a day. If we could build a flyover bridge there, I know it's not right into our district, but it affects the entire district. We have parks, industrial parks, that are primed for commercial base right there. Instead of driving into Boston, we could have sustainable jobs right here in Middleborough. These are things funding needs to go into this, but if we can develop that commercial base, we can take some of that funding for our roads, for our streets. Look into mass work grants. We're doing a lot in Kingston with the OT, with some of the exits coming off exit 10. They're also looking at exit 9 in Kingston. But these are things that will make a big difference.
Joe, how do you solve transportation?
So I will start by saying that the Baker administration has done a great job of solving this, working to solve this problem at the executive branch level. This is something that, working with their Chapter 90 funds to work on infrastructure on the roads, but also trying to tackle the problems with the MBTA that have been the root cause of past administrations that have let these resources deteriorate and then caused higher than normal fail rates. I think that we're in a position where as we continue to grow our economic base here, there's also that opportunity to bring commerce into our region and then alleviate some of the traffic that's heading up north and create jobs down in this region that are sustainable, that can provide a living for people and make sure that we're doing our part to work on some of the other surrounding infrastructure.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to, it's interesting that tonight I did get a few emails asking questions of our candidates, coincidental or not, about keeping first responders safe and supporting them. As we've been giving you updates tonight, there's an active shooter situation here in Marshfield, which I'll give you an update on as soon as I ask the two candidates questions. What do you think needs to be done to help our first responders on the job to stay safe, and how can we support them? Let's start with you, Kathy.
Okay, this is a personal one for me. As I mentioned, my husband is a Kingston police officer on the SWAT team, waiting for him to run out any minute here. But prior to that, he was a detective in the gang unit in New York City, and he was at 9/11 and was a rescue worker. So it's very important to me. He's in the Twin Towers study. A lot of them have developed cancer. We have many firefighter friends, and there was a bill just passed for their safety and their health care as well. But they're also developing cancer from breathing in the fumes. It's very important that we have the back of our first responders and our police officers and our firefighters, because they have our back. We need funding, that they have the right equipment, that they're staffed properly. I know in Plimpton, some of those police officers are by themselves all from midnight to 8 in the morning. And as we see, we think Plimpton's a small, sleepy town. Look what's happening here in Marshfield. So again, we need funding, that they are taken care of if they develop a cancer or if they develop an ailment due to work. We need to make sure that they're taken care of with their health care costs. We need to have funding for their equipment that we're staffed properly. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And if
one
you-
of those things I'm passionate
Of course.
about.
And remember, if you feel like you didn't get to answer a question, fully during the course of this forum, you can always use your time at the end
Thank
as
you,
well.
Christine.
Same question for you, Joe Truschelli. What are we doing for our first responders? What else
So-
do we need to do?
So I think training is a big aspect to this, and I had the opportunity to be down at Joint Base Cape Cod just recently, where they did a big collaborative training. Top Gun is what they called it, with the National Guard, the state police, as well as the district attorneys, where they worked on different scenarios and giving that training not only to the police and first responders that are going into these scenes, but also to the DAs who are then going and prosecuting these, so that they can understand what our police and fire are going into and our first responders are going into. I'm a firm supporter that we need to make sure that our police, fire, first responders have the right equipment and are taken care of for what they're doing. They're risking their lives every day, and having the opportunity to have been a first responder as well as to be in the military, I understand firsthand how important this issue is, and I will be there with the police and fire to make sure that we give them those adequate resources and trainings.
Let's go to Kevin Tocci, the questions for our candidates.
The Commonwealth is currently sitting on $1 billion surplus because they have yet to close out fiscal year 2018. Now, the governor, he wants to spend the money on school safety and other educational initiatives. Where would you like to see that money spent, especially in your district? Kathy.
Education, number one. Like I had mentioned before, vocational education would be fantastic. I do think we need to have that funding for school resource officers, especially after the news tonight. I hope that reinforces to everybody how we need school resource officers in every school. I would also like to see some of that money go into the infrastructure. We had mentioned some roads and some streets that need to be done. The bridges that our children are driving over, our parents are driving over, are in desperate need of repair. I would like to see that also expansion to some grants, if we could develop some grants for economic development for small business owners.
Same question, Joe.
So I think the governor handled it very well. I think by putting it into education, especially after the House and Senate had both passed independent education reform bills that fell flat on their face when they went to conference committee. They couldn't agree with an actual solution that would have addressed this. I think the governor made the right move by investing that into the education system. On top of that, I think infrastructure is important, and I think that we do need to work on our roads, especially down here on the South Shore, and we have to also work on a number of different seawall repairs. I know that there's issues. One of the big issues I've hit in Duxbury has been the seawall there that has to be repaired by this year. And making sure that I think that investing in that coastline infrastructure is important, as well as investing in our communities and our economic development.
Okay. Charles Mathewson, question for the candidates.
Something that came up in the previous forum. Massachusetts is debating whether to become a sanctuary state, would you vote in favor of expanding the concept of sanctuary city? Joe Truschelli, let's start with you.
So I've given this one a lot of thought, and I'm definitely opposed to sanctuary states. At first, my first inclination was that we should be letting the communities themselves handle their business with that. But I think after looking at it and not allowing that collaboration between local police and the federal law enforcement agencies, we'll be doing a disservice to ourselves. So I will be opposing any efforts to make us sanctuary cities, and I would look to then work on making sure that we do have that collaboration and make sure that those that are not immigrating into our country the right way are being processed through the proper way, and those that are here to try and make their way into our, we're a nation of immigrants, and we need to recognize that. But there's a right way of coming here, and there's a wrong way, and we need to make sure that we help people, facilitate them through the process the right way.
Kathy LaNatra, would you vote for sanctuary state or not?
Well, as we know, Massachusetts is a home rule state. So what necessarily works in the cities of Boston and Cambridge may not work down here in the 12th District. And I don't believe a sanctuary city would work down here in the 12th District. So I would oppose any of the towns in the 12th District becoming a sanctuary city.
Thank you.
Let's go to Kevin Tocci. Question for the candidates.
How do you feel about bill bundling? I know that seems to be the last couple of forums we've had. It seems a little bit of an angst about bill bundling. If there's a piece of legislation of yours that, it made it through committee and maybe they've tweaked the legislation a little bit, but then they want to join it to others. How do you feel about your legislation becoming part of other bills that are bundled together to be signed by the governor? Are you for that or against it, Joe?
Well, I've seen this firsthand. I've seen how it can work, but then I've also seen the detriment to how bill bundling can and adding all that into the sausage that makes that bill really can water.
Really hungry right
now. I know. I'm sorry, but it can water down the bill, and it can render it less effective. I've had the opportunity at Vets to be able to see great bills put together, comprehensive packages that address certain aspects of the population, making sure that we address affordable housing and that we address shortfalls within funding for the soldiers' homes and things like that. But then I've also watched them on the back end where they've put in conference committee amendments that made no sense and didn't really work with that bill. And it's unfortunate that that's the way that they go, but there needs to be debate, and we need to have debate on the bills, and we need to make sure that we go that direction.
Well, we'll go on to Kathy and get your take on the same question.
On bill bundling.
That is correct. How do you feel about bill bundling? You have a nice piece of legislation. You feel it's going to not only help your district but others around the Commonwealth, and they want to kind of put it in with other legislation.
Correct.
Give me your thoughts.
I feel that each bill should stand on its own merit. So I am against bill bundling. People put a lot of thought and effort when they draft a bill, and it should be heard all the way through instead of bundled. And I think it's only fair to the people and the organizations that put those bills through. So I would oppose bill bundling.
But even if you have some of your colleagues who are pushing for it, the Democratic leadership's pushing for it, are you going to be somebody who's going to push back? Or are you going to go in lockstep and go, okay, we'll let it go?
No, I'm someone that pushes back. They should stand on their own merit.
Okay.
Each bill should stand on its own merit.
Same question to you, Joe, in regards to what if a Republican leadership, the minorities party is pushing a bill and they're saying, no, let's push it through. Are you going to push back, or are you going to say, no, okay, we'll let it go?
I'm likely to push back and push for the bill to be heard. I know that's been a kind of a consensus that we've had within the Republican Party, is that we want to hear all of the bills, and that's been an issue, is that there hasn't been that debate, and it's actually been more of an issue with House leadership that's been on the opposite side of the aisle.
Okay.
Charles Mathewson, question for the candidates.
At the other end of bills, is there anyone named Bill here? No. This is a bizarre district. encompasses little pieces of so many towns. And more than supporting legislation, a state representative's job is dealing with constituents, responding to constituents. In this bizarre district that covers so many towns, how do you perform constituent services? Joe Truschelli.
Sure. Again, another area that I have extensive experience in. I've handled constituent services throughout the whole state with each of the reps and senators, across two legislative bodies. I don't feel that it's going to be an issue for me to go and be in the district and make sure that I have office hours and to be able to adjust those office hours based on what the need is. If it means that I have to spend more time out in places like Oak Point that are a 55-plus community and that there's not as much traveling outside of those walls, then I will be there. And I think it's important that, as a legislator, I'm listening to what their concerns are and finding reasonable solutions and making sure we address their concerns. And a lot of these concerns are similar concerns that are getting addressed at different levels of the executive branch through different agencies. So I'd be looking to see where those issues are and make sure that we're building that consensus to work on solutions.
Kathy LaNatra, constituent services in a bizarre district.
Well, first, I wouldn't call it a bizarre district, Charlie. I would
Well,
call
I
it
mean,
a
the-
unique district.
It is unique.
It's very
uniquely
unique. It's
bizarre.
actually 105 square miles, so it is pretty vast, and it encompasses 6 towns. But bizarre, I wouldn't say bizarre. I definitely would not. So as I started my campaigning, I've been fortunate enough to be in people's living rooms. They've invited me into their living rooms with friends, anywhere from 15 to 45 people I've met, and I've listened to all the concerns from the entire district in different towns. How I will handle that in Kingston, I get to serve 14,000 people, and now I'm just expanding that to 40,000 in the district, and I will do that by having office hours. I'll have in the town halls, in the senior centers. I will have office hours, hopefully, as we get going, maybe in Cottage Park to follow Rep. Coulter. But it's really about listening to the needs of the constituents and letting them get to know me. There was a nice book written by Tip O'Neill, All Politics Are Local. And we're just going to keep it local.
Thank you.
All right, let me ask you a quick question. Let's say I live in your district. I don't. I'm a homeowner. I run a small business. I've got kids in the schools. What are you going to do for me, Kathy LaNatra? Why should I vote for you?
Well, there's a couple of things I can relate to there. I was a small business owner for 10 years, and I am a parent and do have children in the school, and I'm a homeowner. So taxes are important to me. So I would start with bringing in some economic growth to the district. We can level the playing field there a little bit, stabilize that tax base. I would fight and advocate for funding for our schools, for that school budget formula. You're a small business owner, I believe you said too. Is that Christine? Mm-hmm. A couple things, as being a small business owner in the past, I know how challenging that is. And one of the things I would like to do is get rid of that filing fee. I know some people will think it's not a lot of money, but $500 for a seasonal business when it's coming at the wrong time is a lot of money. I'd also like to have some grants available, access to some grants for small businesses. But there's a lot of different things that I could do for you.
Thank you. That was Kathy LaNatra. Same question, Joe Truschelli.
Sure. So unwrapping this, there's a number of different areas to cover in here, but I think one of the big things is having the children in the schools to focus on the education system, making sure that we're working on those technical studies and expanding the potential for certificate programs to be able to get these kids into the workforce and on their feet, because I know how important it is as a small business owner for people to be able to balance their checkbooks and to be able to provide help to their children and make sure that they can go on and do what they want to do. The other side of this is, though, and having one thing that's been good is I've spent a lot of time talking to the NFIB on these issues, and I've seen the EMAC tax has been crippling small businesses, making the small businesses subsidize mass health for their employees that otherwise couldn't afford it. And I think that we need to work on making sure that those small businesses are not crippled but empowered and able to grow their base and be able to stay in the community for the long haul.
Okay. Let's go to Let's go to Kevin Tocci now. Questions for the candidates.
Joe, look to your right. Look to your right. Kathy, look to your left. Look at each other. What makes you? This is
I know. I feel
Go-
like I'm
go
in
easy
marriage
here now.
counseling. Go ahead.
no. This is ahead. What makes you a better choice to be the next state rep of the 12th Plymouth District over the person you're looking at? What makes you better? What's some of the qualities that you have, or what's some of the things that you feel that you possess that'll make you the better candidate? Start with you, Kathy.
I think I possess experience, leadership. I've owned a small business for 10 years. I've been in municipal government for well over 10 years. I'm a volunteer. I've lived a life of service. I don't need a job. I have a very good paying job right now. This is a job I want, and I think I will do a great job at it.
Same question.
Sure. I think it comes down to experience. I've worked on many of these issues that we face, whether it be the opioid epidemic, whether it be housing and working on legislation up on Beacon Hill. I've worked on constituent issues. This is an opportunity for me to take all of that experience, package nicely, and bring it back into our 6 communities and represent the whole 12th Plymouth as a leader, someone who's been in the military for 18 years, someone who's served in multiple leadership capacities, and someone who's served in the private sector as well. I have a balance of really. I think I am the all-around balanced candidate who has the skills to be effective there in the House.
Charles Mathewson.
We usually ask this question at the beginning, but it's been an unusual forum. I won't say bizarre again.
Sorry.
Unique.
You can say unique.
Kathy LaNatra, what kind of Democrat are you? And don't say a Kathy LaNatra.
I am not
Democrat.
going to say that. I'm a proud Democrat in the sense that I believe in equal rights for all people and that all people deserve respect. I'm fiscally responsible. I consider myself a consensus builder, Charlie. I'm a consensus builder and I'm a centrist. So if I was to label the whole thing, I would say I'm a consensus building centric Democrat. How's that? That's not LaNatra Democrat.
Yeah. Joe, what kind of Republican are you?
Sure. I'm someone that can work with all parties. I'm someone who's going to build consensus. And I know the question came up in the first political forum, and the question was, do you consider yourself to be a Charlie Baker Republican? I think that's not a bad thing to discuss, because I think one of the things that he has done very well is build consensus on issues. He's reached across the aisle when he's needed to, but he's also been able to stand up and say, hey, no, I don't agree with this when he's felt that the issue was wrong. I do like to stand on my own 2 feet, and I like the fact that I can have discussions with leadership on both sides and say, this is my opinion and this is what I can do for my district. But at the end of the day, I'm here to represent the 12th Plymouth district. And whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. It just matters that I'm going to take care of the best care of the people that I represent.
I'm here. One lightning round question, then we're going to go to closing statements.
One
Kevin.
word that best describes you.
Fierce.
Lean into the mic, Joe.
Leader.
I know it's a busy time for both of you. Do you have time to read a book or see a movie? And if so, what? Kathy LaNatra.
I do not have time, Charlie. I'm sorry. I wish I had one at the tip of my tongue for you, but I don't.
Joe Truschelli.
When I have time, I will be taking my 3 kids to the movie as a family for the first time in a few months now.
What movie?
We'll see what's out by then.
Kevin, another quick question.
Would you ever support or vote for open road tolling? This is yes or no. Joe.
No.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Would you ever support or vote for open road tolling?
Open road tolling. I'm not very familiar with that,
That's
so
a
I don't want to
toll,
use.
like the Turnpike.
Yeah, like by mileage or something. Yeah.
You mean like on Route 3?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was that a yes
Oh,
or
that was
no?
good. That's
Sorry,
like the Muppets.
I just. I'd have to look more into that.
Okay. Ollie, I'm going to ask you a quick one because it wouldn't be a forum unless I asked this.
here we
And I'm going to ask Plymouth County government, stay or time to go? Kathy.
stay. I think it's good for all of us.
Okay, Joe Truschelli, stay or time to go?
Stay has its uses, and you didn't hear my head hit the microphone when you said that, when you asked that one.
I have to. I don't want to
We'll edit
disappoint
that out.
Dan Pilata, who's very angry that I ask it, so I keep doing it. So let's go to final statements now. We're gonna change the order. We started with Joe and then went to Kathy. So this time we'll start with Kathy and then go to Joe. And remember, these final statements are 1 minute, please.
Okay. So thank you again to WATD for hosting this forum. Conversations like this one are fundamental to a vibrant democracy, and it's refreshing to be able to discuss actual issues that matter to people here. As a state and a country, we are at a crossroads over whether to build a better future or turn back the clock. I'm asking for your vote because I am the only candidate with the vision and ideas to move our district forward towards a sustainable future. I'll fight for increased local aid for our schools and infrastructure, and I'll work for more protection and assistance for our first responders and veterans. These aren't partisan issues, and I'll work with anyone from any party to build consensus around common sense solution to get the job done for the district. The 12th Plymouth District is a wonderful place to live, and I know that if we work together, we can keep our neighborhoods the strong, unique places they are today. Thank you, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th.
Thank you very much. That was Kathy LaNatra with her final statement. Let's go to Joe Truschelli.
Thank you to you and your listeners here at WATD. And as always, I'm honored to participate in the WATD Political Forum and thank my opponent for joining us. As you heard today, there's several clear differences, my opponent and I, on how we plan to represent the people of this district. I consider myself lucky to have had the opportunity to serve our communities in multiple capacities over the years and have spearheaded several of the issues in my time working for our sheriff, the United States Air Force, as well as the Baker-Polito administration. The experience I've gained over the years building relationships and working on issues gives me the credibility to go work across state government to get the job done. I ask that you please get to know my campaign and visit our website at www.truschelli.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Truschelli Committee. And I think it would be my honor if I could earn your vote on November 6th, and I would love to be your next state representative.
Thank you very much. That was Joe Truschelli. You've been listening to a WATD Political Forum here tonight. I'm Christine James, your moderator, asking questions with me. We have Kevin Tocci, Monday Night Talk host, and of course our own Charles Mathewson asking questions as well, being timed there by Amy Leonard. The two candidates you just heard, Joe Truschelli, Kathy LaNatra. Thank you also, Whitman Hanson, Community TV. And I remember listening to 95.9 FM in Marshfield, the South Shore's news and information station. Get out there and vote. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. Thanks for listening.